A long, long time ago, Thomas Aquinas said there are three things necessary for salvation: to know what to believe, to know what to want, and to know what to do. That's it. You don't have to feel a thing. Learn the right thing, pursue the right things, do the right things, and you're in. Now, that seems cold and heartless to us, but at the time, that was considered a revolutionary thought. One of the differences between the Ashkenazic and Sephardic communities in Judaism, one person put, is that Sephardic Jews ask, "What must I know to be Jewish?" And Ashkenazic Jews ask, "What must I do to be Jewish?" But no one says, "How should you feel to be Jewish?" or "How should you feel to be Christian?" This is important because we're so in love with our feelings. We need to recognize that that's not the whole picture of who we are. We are more than our feelings, and spirituality is more than our feelings. And this, I think, has been lost. We have forgotten that we have minds, and that we have a will, a capacity to decide, and that these are also part of our spiritual lives because they're part of us. St. Augustine, one of my favorite people, I know one of yours, thought the soul consisted of three things: mind, heart, and will. Now, you may disagree with the details, but I think what he was trying to say, and what I believe is true, is that we are complex creatures. We have feelings. We also have thoughts. We also have desires. And they don't match up all the time, do they? We know the right thing to do. We all know to do the right thing. How many of us do it all the time? Zero. Because our emotions lead us in a different way, or we want to do this, but know we should do that, but you see what I mean? We are complex creatures, and spirituality is part of understanding that complexity. Yes, the heart has reasons which reason doesn't understand, and reason has feelings which the emotions don't understand. You see what I mean? I want you to accept that you're a mess. Inwardly, accept that you're confused, complex, conflicted. I want you to see that as being ordinary and natural, and in some respects, good. Because what we are sold by the spiritual industrial complex is the idea that you shouldn't feel conflicted. You shouldn't be confused. You shouldn't be uncertain. You should feel centered and calm and peaceful all the time. Well, that's a great feeling, and we all want it. But let's be honest, we don't get it very often. And in between our moments of spiritual ecstasy and calm, we have to do the dishes and pay the bills and watch the dog and clean up after the kids and mow the lawn. And these things count too. Even the Dalai Lama smokes. You see what I mean? We are spiritually complex creatures, and we should be okay with that. And in fact, my point about adolescence is the need for intimacy that we all feel, that longing, has an inner as well as an outer aspect. When we long for intimacy with another person, with God, we are also longing for an inner intimacy with ourselves, to connect the mind and the heart and the will, to bring them into closer communion with each other within us, not so they can blend together into some unity that never divides. You see, this is where the Orthodox Christian has an advantage over us. They have this notion of the Trinity, that God is three persons and yet one. I want you to know that everyone is at least three people inside. All of us are a child. All of us are an adult. Many of us are children, are also parents. We live inside different spiritual, social, emotional bodies. And we should realize that managing all of them is an act of inner intimacy. When we long for another person, we're longing for ourselves. We're longing for the connection within as well as the connection without. This is a persistent theme you may have noticed if you come from Sunday to Sunday, that every outer act has a parallel on the inside, and they can only be done at the same time. You cannot withdraw from the world to gain unity with yourself, because that inner confusion will still be there. And you cannot ignore the outer community altogether. Because if you're all by yourself and you're perfect and you're all spiritual and serene and people over there are dying, you are not as spiritual as you think you are you? Thomas à Kempis, who wrote the famous book, The Imitation of Christ, said, if you are in the seventh heaven of prayer, communing with God himself, and a man in need of water is next to you, it is better for you to leave that ecstasy and give water to the thirsty man than to stay in communion with God. We need the outer and the inner intimacy. We cannot abandon the world to find the center of ourselves. We cannot abandon the center of ourselves to find the world. They are in tension. It cannot be otherwise, because the tension is out of which we grow. I've often said that the mission of liberal religion, no matter what flavor it comes in, skeptical, Christian, Jewish, Buddhist, is to free the mind, grow the soul, and change the world. Do you understand that those are each parts of you? The mind, the heart, and the will. And by trying to bring them together, all three grow. So what I'm trying to tell you this morning as we approach the top of the hour is, please reject the spiritual industrial complex that wants to give you an hour's worth of prayerful silence, or an hour's worth of worshipful decorum, or an hour's worth of spiritual happiness, because it's false. It's a cheeseburger going through the drive-thru of life. You've got to do your own spiritual cooking. You've got to make yourself well fed by feeding yourself with the real food of life, of thought and study, of feeling and relationships, of injustice and response. No book, no church, no preacher, no CD, no step-by-step program can ultimately do that all for you. You have to choose to do it for yourself, and you must do it every day. And it's bloody hard work. So what I'm trying to tell you, I'll say it again, leave the spiritual industrial complex. Oh, some of those books will be helpful, but remember, your job is not to do what the book says, but to find intimacy with your own soul by seeking intimacy with the world around you. True spiritual life arises from all parts of us. And it becomes alive in us when the mind speaks to the heart and the heart speaks to the hand, when they are in communion with each other. And then we will have a new feeling, a new thought, a new act. It's called life. Come alive, friends. Every day you have a chance to be more alive. That's what every faith is trying to get you to do. Come alive. Wake up. Live. Amen.